So, I finally finished watching Fallout, the brand new video game adaptation coming from Amazon, and also Jonathan Nolan, the brother of Christopher Nolan. He's written most of Christopher Nolan's movies. He also made the first season, and all seasons, but we're only going to talk about the first season, of Westworld, one of the best first seasons of television ever. So this is a man that knows what he's doing when it comes to TV. Now, Fallout is of course an adaptation of the video game series that is best known by being developed by the studio of Bethesda Games. Of course, Todd Howard, the man that said this.
All of this just works.
And like what Todd Howard said there, this series just sort of works. It is just sort of brilliant somehow. And it's a series that probably shouldn't have been as good as it ended up being, and it might actually just be the best video game adaptation ever. I'm just gonna say that. So let me get into it. Now, Fallout, the whole universe. This is a world that takes place in the United States of America after a nuclear apocalypse destroys everything. We jump about 200-ish years into the future, and we start to see this new wasteland that still exists in America, filled with radioactive monsters, terrifying people that are just kind of scavenging and killing each other. You get some normal people, some settlements, some interesting factions and groups, and a bunch of awesome things that sort of lend themselves well to video games. But does that lend itself well to a TV show? Well, I thought it probably wouldn't. I thought this was a terrible idea when they announced it. I thought this is one of the few video game things that didn't really need an adaptation, because what really helps the world of Fallout, the video game world, is the fact that it's an RPG. You get to explore the world, make your own decisions, make your own story. It's not really a world that I think is very interesting outside of the element of freedom, of kind of making your own path in the wasteland, because when you really look into the world of Fallout, it's grim, it's bleak, and there's really nothing great about it that you really want to excitingly dive into. But I was wrong, and partially because Jonathan Nolan is a goddamn genius. So this show takes the Fallout world to California, and we follow, obviously, America about 200 years after the nuclear war. We follow three main characters in this show. One that is a vault dweller, and if you have never played the games, you're asking yourself, what is a vault dweller? Well, before the nuclear apocalypse, this company called Vault-Tec set up a bunch of different vaults, essentially doomsday shelters across the United States of America, and when the nuclear apocalypse happened, a bunch of people, rich people, other kinds of people sort of came into these vaults, and 200 years later, some of these vaults are still habited. They're still, the descendants of those original vault people are still there, and now they're coming to the surface. That's pretty much the main point of each game, is you sort of play as a vault dweller. And this show follows one named Lucy, played by Ella Purnell, and she is sort of sent on a quest outside of the vault that I won't spoil, but she is essentially going after something, trying to save somebody, and she is experiencing the wasteland for the first time as the eyes of the audience, this sort of fish out of water story of this girl who has never been in the wasteland, has never seen any shit before, and she's just kind of experiencing for the first time, like much of the audience. And her character is one who probably on paper you wouldn't think would work, but honestly, as simple as it is, a simple kind of like Wonder Woman going through London for the first time, these basic fish out of water stories, there is so much charm in it, and it's really delivered through the performance of Ella Purnell, who is so good in this show and sells this innocence to her character and this gleefulness to her that it's just so fun to watch as she gets into these different scenarios throughout the wasteland. You also follow the character of Maximus, who's played by Aaron Clifton Moden. I also love this character. I love the performance here. This is a character who comes from the Brotherhood of Steel, a very prevalent group of survivors on the wasteland in the Fallout universe. They appear in, I think, most of the games. I was a member of the Brotherhood of Steel when I played through Fallout 4. They are an awesome army-like group. They have these big mechs. They're badass. They have these, different titles like Knights and Squire, and just a really cool and original group. And he is a member of this group. He is a Squire, and he gets sent into the wasteland, and just chaos erupts with his character that I won't really get fully into, but he has a very well-structured, well-written arc that although does get a little predictable at different points, was still very entertaining, and the character, yet again, sort of performs that innocence vibe to him, and this sort of a cheerful, almost like childlike glee to his character that's really contrasted with the brutal sort of matureness of the world that's all around them and the situations they're propped in. And of course, like everybody's been talking about, Walter Goggins is in the show. He plays this guy, Cooper, who is a ghoul. A ghoul are these things that in the apocalypse, they've been alive for a very long time, and they're sort of immune to a lot of different things. He's been alive for about 200 years. Before the nuclear apocalypse, he was an actor, a very famous actor, and throughout the show, we uncover how he got to where he is now and what happened before the apocalypse and what kind of person he is. And you're slowly exposed to him, but oh my god, Walter Goggins is a superstar in this show. He is badass, he's terrifying, but there's something about him that you just can't help but to root for. He is so great. I'm gonna reference Westworld really quick. It really reminded me of the Man in Black from the first season of Westworld. Kind of that weird mystique with him where he was clearly kind of a bad guy and a badass, just doing all these crazy things, just being so kind of devious, and also you just couldn't help but root for him, and you didn't want to take your eyes off him. And I think they did the same sort of thing with Walton Goggins' character here. Not just the fact that he wears a hat that's similar, and he's kind of a cowboy, badass gunslinger, but such a great character, best part of the whole show. Now, these three main characters, of course, their paths cross throughout the show. The reasonings for why they cross, how they interact with each other is really what makes the show work so well. These characters have so much chemistry, and you just want to see them do the things that they both want to do and do the things that the audience wants to see them do throughout without spoiling too much. There is just such good chemistry between them, and it really, it makes a season 2 more exciting because these characters are so strong, and any show like this needs strong characters, and at its core, it has really strong characters. The show also has a few mysteries and a few arcs that are very intriguing. From the first episode, you're opened up to a very interesting arc with the main character, Lucy, where she's going, who she's trying to get back, and exploring the wasteland. Like, that is a very interesting plotline. Then you have the plotline with Walton Goggins' character, what happened to his family, where he came from. All of the mystery around that is also very intriguing. But then you also have a storyline going back at Vault 33, the vault that Lucy comes from. Now, if you don't know the Fallout universe, every single vault from Vault-Tec, there's kind of a twist to it. Vault-Tec are kind of the bad guys of the whole series, so each vault had a very devious and very nasty experiment kind of implemented in the vault. In the games, you could find these vaults, and you could find how terrible some of the stuff that was going on in them actually were. Some vaults are relatively normal, the tests aren't too bad, but some of them have like weird things like pumping psychedelics into the vault to try to see if making people go crazy will have like an effect on how they rebuild society in the vault. They had other ones where it's like one dude and 100 women. If only I was him, man. Goddamn.
It should have been me, not him!
But you also have one girl and 100 men. That's probably not as good. But look at all, there's like a million different vaults. So the whole series, you're kind of waiting to see what is the actual test in this vault here. You have Vault 33, 31, and 32, these three vaults that are right next to each other, and you're trying to figure out what the weird test was, because it seems very normal early on. And through Lucy's brother Norm, another really good character in the show, we slowly start to uncover the conspiracy of Vault 33, and that becomes another very large aspect of the show, and arguably the most interesting one, the one that just kept me watching every one of these episodes, because they were always ending on cliffhangers that were really insinuating and sort of hinting at the mystery of Vault 33, and that was one of the most interesting aspects of the show. But each one of these arc lines had a very interesting mystery on it that you wanted to see resolved. Some of it gets resolved, some of it not so much. The one thing that I'll say this show did brilliantly is it ended up merging all of these different mysteries and all of these different plot lines together, even though they were happening in very different locations. By the time you get to the finale, they've all kind of combined and made for one sort of straightforward, in a way, sort of plot line that leaves the door open for a new mystery, a new thing to figure out. You don't have all the answers, but you have enough to say, oh my god, all of these plot lines actually connect, and now the show is 10 times better, and I kind of want to go rewatch the whole thing. It makes the journey feel meaningful. It makes that so every single plot line, every single subplot felt meaningful. There's no subplot in this show that felt like it wasn't put there for a reason, because it all sort of benefits the overall plot and what they're building towards with this character and with the world. The show ends in a very great place that teases what should be an incredible season 2 that I have no doubt is going to get made, as big as this season 1 has been and as successful as it's been. And overall, the plot of the show is great. The performances were great. The violence is awesome. There are some really good, action scenes. The violence here is both graphic and just brutal in a very interesting way. For example, there's a really good gunfight with Walton Goggins' character, I believe in the second episode, it might have been at the end of the first, but it's just very well done, and it's kind of your introduction to him. Another thing I forgot to mention, the opening scene of the show in general, one of the best scenes to open a show ever. I mean, probably the best use of nuclear weapons I've ever seen. There's a moment in the opening scene where he's telling his daughter the whole thumb thing, if you've never heard of it, if you ever see a nuclear bomb go off, you're fucked. But if you ever see one go off, apparently if you put your thumb up and you go like that, and the nuclear cloud is bigger than your thumb, you're fucked. If it's not, you're okay. You're just probably gonna be fucked later on. But then lo and behold, you see the daughter and the camera focuses on her and she sees something in the distance nobody else is seeing and she puts her thumb up and she's very nervous. And then the dad comes and he's looking and he's like, no, that's just smoke. Don't worry about that. But then the smoke grows and it grows and it grows and it's like, oh my god, no, that's we're fucked. It's just a very terrifying way to insinuate, like, how a nuclear war would start, how people would react. I thought it was brilliant. It's what hooked me from the start. In any good TV show, the opening scene is very, very important because you gotta hook them from the opening moments. So compared to something like The Last of Us that really had to follow a very, very, very precise story and was not able to stray far away from that original story, that show, as good as it is, just kind of feels like a retreading of something that was already great. It doesn't feel like anything new or fresh. This feels new, it feels fresh, but it also exists in a world that will give a lot of people the nostalgia bait that they want. I got nostalgia watching this show because I've played the games and I love the games. It's also done in a way that if you're somebody who's never played the games, don't even know what the hell the games are, there's still a lot of enjoyment here. This is a great original show that doesn't rely on your previous knowledge of the universe for you to enjoy it. It's not bashing your head in with nostalgia. That's not the point of it. It's telling a story in this very, very cool world that Jonathan Nolan clearly found intriguing enough to build stories and a whole TV show in. And overall, this is a phenomenal show. And I will say this, there are a lot of other video game adaptations in the work. We have a God of War show. I think we're going to get a Metal Gear movie at some point, which Metal Gear, that's the one that needs to get made. But either way, with all these video game adaptations, the one thing I will continue to say about these shows is, or movies, is they will work as long as you have the right people involved. A Fallout show would have been a pile of shit if most different people in Hollywood were involved in making it, but because Jonathan Nolan and his team, his wife, and all of them were involved in the making of this, it ended up being something really, really special, because when you have special people involved, they make special projects. And that's what we got here.
Special teams, special plays, special players.
So now we got to score Fallout. Now I've been going back and forth because a part of me wants to give this a 5, but I feel like I can't. You know, I gave Succession a 5. I gave Better Call Saul a 5. Is this as good as those? Like, I really don't know, right? Maybe I gotta start giving stuff a 6 if I think they're really, really great. Just to be safe, though, we'll give Fallout a 4.5 out of 5, although I think it is as good as you could really get when making a Fallout show. I just don't think it's in that same tier as shows like Succession and The Bear. It's just, like, slightly below those. So what do you guys think? Have you seen Fallout? If you have, let me know what you thought of it down below. Please make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, click the video on your screen right now to see more of my content that I upload every day. I'll see you guys in the next one.